Hi. I don't even know where to start. Um, I've just been watching a documentary on BJ Investigates. If you don't know her, check her out. She's very well researched and very thorough in a lot of her investigations and a lot of her documentaries. So go ahead and check her out. She recently did this documentary on Mark Later, Soft White Underbelly. And I'm not going to hold you. When I first saw Soft White Underbelly's video, Soft White Underbelly, Soft White Underbelly's videos, when I first watched them, there were specific guests on there like Amanda, like Rebecca, talking about witchcraft, talking about well, in Rebecca's case, she was talking about witchcraft. And then in Amanda's case, the lady who died, she was talking about the CIA using her. And now, through this documentary, I'm finding out that this guy, Mark Later, is basically a go-between between traffickers and trafficking subjects. So Soft White Underbelly, under the guise of being a documentary series highlighting forgotten and neglected people, is really a vehicle to traffic forgotten and neglected people through a psychiatric or sex work pipeline. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I will link the video. But I'm heartbroken. And it's not like I don't know about these things. It's not like I've never known about it. I mean, when I was getting deep into this gang stalking thing, like when I was knowledgeable enough to know what was going on, but not emotionally mature enough to deal with it, I was throwing out all kinds of lines about how, how gang stalkers have pedophiles on the payroll. This is true. They have pedophiles on the payroll. How they have child molesters on the payroll. How they assist in child trafficking, assist in child pornography. Because if you're engaging in surveillance against a TI who's only a baby, and TIs can be babies, TIs can be children, they can be attacked as young as developmental age. So I was saying all that shit when I was living in London. And I was saying that out of anger. All of it was true. It was true. But I was saying that out of anger. I didn't realize the actual gravity of what that meant. Of what this whole gang stalking thing means. There are so many gang stalkers out there that have convinced themselves that what they're doing is rounding up bad people. They are the bad people. Gang stalking is nothing but a glorified trafficking ring. I've said it before, but now I'm seeing this Mark Later stuff, and I'm seeing how the trafficking is done, and I'm watching all these lawsuits with Beyonce and Jay-Z and stuff, and I'm seeing how this is done in action. I'm seeing where the middlemen are. These are private companies, private tech companies, private surveillance companies, security firms that are the go-between, that act as a go-between between the traffickers and the trafficked, or in some cases can actually be the traffickers. It's just a fucking scary and horrifying situation, but it is what it is. It is the reality of being a targeted individual. Essentially, if you're not like me, who come from a family of basically millionaires, right? If you're not like me and you come from people who are asset rich and cash poor and therefore vulnerable to selling out their own family members, if you're like me and you come from a family of millionaires who are likely to sell out their own family members to get somewhere, then likelihood is that you will be more trafficked, you will be more subject to psychiatric trafficking than sex trafficking. But if you're already vulnerable, then it's likely that it doesn't have to be just psychiatric trafficking. It can be sex trafficking. It can be a number. It can be a number of things. It can be sex trafficking as well if you're particularly vulnerable. Sometimes a TI is unlucky enough to be subject to both. I've been very privileged in my life, and I'll be the first to say it. I've squandered a lot of opportunities, but when I really think about my life, and then I compare it to the people who are on soft white underbelly, or the people in this country who have suffered, who have not had their voices heard, man, fucking hell. I'm going to leave the link for that video. But essentially, it comes down to gangstalking. Gangstalking is not about doing good in the world. It was never about doing good. It was always about trafficking. And what worries me is that now that all of these things are coming out in the open, what will happen is that when society is found guilty of going in a certain direction, they lean more into it. You see this red pill movement, that's telling women, between 18 and 25 is your peak, you're half off after that, like all that type of shit. That's actually making the trafficking of women and children mainstream. Like I said, when you're dealing with a more militarized patriarchal existence, women and children become resources like everything else. So instead of actually outlawing trafficking or outlawing, the abuse of children and the abuse of young girls and things like that, instead of actually doing that and actually working to remove predatory elements from society, and I'm not just talking about people, I'm talking about mindsets as well. Instead of actually working to remove these things, what society is now doing is it's leaning into that and trying to make it seem respectable, trying to dress it up in new clothes and make it respectable. When it's somebody from a hip hop culture or somebody from a culture that's not white, then it's trafficking, then it's human rights abuses. But when it's somebody who's white from a middle class family or from a upper crust family, then it's not trafficking anymore. There is a strategic way that they're doing this. So, like, as much as the truth is coming out, and I want to say, oh, it's about time the truth has come out, there are so many fucking predators. There are so many crimes that have been committed and so many victims of these crimes who deserve compensation for what they've been through. Where do we even begin? Of course, they're going to turn around and make things more openly racist, make things more openly sexist. Because when gang stalking uses racism and uses sexism and uses homophobia to terrorize people, where is there left to go when so many have suffered because of it? Where is there left to go? The only thing left to do, because there are too many people to lock up, there are too many people to chip, there are too many people to irradiate. So what do they do instead? They make sure that culture militarizes itself and becomes more patriarchal and becomes more racist and becomes more sexist. So all of this trafficking stuff that's coming out, I said it when I was really, really sick. I was really sick when I said this, right? I was really ill. But I said that we will, people will get what they want. They will get the predators out in the open, but there's always a catch. The Pied Piper has to be paid. I said that when I was sick. I said it, and I've been saying it for years. The Pied Piper must be paid. If all these predators are going to come out, there are caveats to that. First of all, they have to be caught from the bottom upwards in society. That means whatever the hierarchy of criminality is, they start from the bottom and work their way up. In terms of exposing crime and exposing corruption, they work from the bottom up. So by the time the rich people, the true criminals get caught out, it's too late already. They've already clicked the reset button. That's how they've played it. That's how they've played it. You want people who are exposing child abuse and child trafficking? All right, cool. But we're not going to attack the rich people that's benefiting from all of this. We're going to start from the bottom up. We're going to change laws to make sure that you can't raise your children your way. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't believe in corporal punishment. I don't believe in it. I think it's lazy. I think it's violent, and I think it's childish. But when they outlawed corporal punishment, again, something I do not fucking believe in at all, they didn't do it for the protection of the children. They did it to remove agency from the parents and to start from the bottom up when it came to predators. When it came to predators that were actually abusing children and using corporal punishment as a way to torture children. Because let's be real, a lot of people were using that to torture children. Now, let's be fucking real. The predators on the ground who were basically torturing their kids with it, they didn't get to torture their kids with it. That meant people largely from marginalized communities. It was to rob agency from families and also to make sure that predators from the bottom up could not rise up, to keep the predators in the lower rungs of society where they are, keep them in their place. So all this stuff around corporal punishment, again, something I don't believe in and never will believe in. You got to look at the motives behind it. When you start peeping game, you start understanding. When it came to racism, who did they attack first? They attacked the poor white man, or the poor Indian man, or the poor Asian man, even the poor black man. When it came to racism, who did they come after first? The common man. When it came to homophobia, who did they come after first? The common man. When it came to fucking transphobia, who did they come after first? The common man. They didn't come after all these corporate organizations that laid the foundation for that culture to be realized in the first place. They didn't attack them. Society did not attack the rich people at the top for benefiting the most from these hate crimes and from these hateful things being done to vulnerable people. Every single law that restricted abusive behavior, it was always amongst the poor. It was never amongst the rich. And it always impacted marginalized communities the most. And they made sure of it. And not even just through outlawing certain practices, but also through environmental racism, dumping toxic waste in areas that are predominantly black, brown, or poor. They did it through deliberately leaving urban areas to decay so that rich white people or rich Asian people can buy up properties on the cheap and then rent it out for God knows how much money. And gangstalking is facilitating in all of that. When gangstalking fully comes out, who do you think they're going to go after first? They're not even going to go after the TIs. We've already been rendered harmless. Who do you think they're going to go after? They're going to go after the poor fucking perps. The perps who said yes without a single moment's hesitation because they had kids to feed or because they had an addiction to feed. And speaking of which, single mothers or mothers in general, or any type of anybody with a familial bond, they're the easiest people to use for this kind of stalking. Because they're not using their brains. They're not using their brains. All they can think about is my child, my child, my child. They are the easiest motherfuckers to use. The easiest ones to use. Those and addicts. Because you've got a poor emotional regulation that you can, I mean, it's unstable. It's unstable to keep using people with poor emotional regulation, but it fucking works. And I bet you any money, when everything comes out about gang stalking, then people are going to be the ones who are attacked first. I guarantee it. If it's not the mentally ill perps, it's going to be the addict perps. It's going to be the single parent perps. It's going to be the perps who have families, who are poor. They're the ones who are going to get it in the neck first. But they're not going to get it in the neck through the exposure of gang stalking, even though gang stalking will come out. They're going to get it through the laws. So like I've been saying, these people have been signing their own motherfucking death certificate. And I'm supposed to sit here and, and be quiet and be, I'm supposed to bow down to these same people who are writing their own death warrant and using my life to do it. Fuck out of here. And not only that, contributing to a psychiatric trafficking pipeline and a sex trafficking pipeline. The fuck? Do people seriously think that electronic torture is the only thing that happens to us? We're surveyed everything that we do and everywhere that we go. We've got TIs who are parents. You think their children are not being spied on? Better yet, you think their children are not being spied on and that information is not being shared on the dark web? You're crazy. You're crazy. That is what gang stalking is contributing to. Not just the psychiatric trafficking pipeline. And by the way, that's the public's fault. That is entirely the public's fault. It should never have gotten to that fucking level. If people weren't so fucking dismissive of mentally ill people, none of this would be going on. I'm going around talking about psychosis, like every time you hear a fringe theory. Fuck off. You're the one who's directly contributing to psychiatrically vulnerable people or psychologically vulnerable people being trafficked. You're contributing to that. Can't happen without people treating psychologically vulnerable people like shit. You can't have the trafficking without that. You also can't have the trafficking without sex negativity, which contributes to deviant behavior sexually. There is so much that I could fucking say. There are already TIs in this country who have been raped repeatedly because of the program, who have been abused repeatedly because of the program, who have been trafficked via psychiatry because of the program. And their street theatre and their fucking noise campaigns and their fucking break-ins and their fucking vandalism and their fucking all of that contributes to the trafficking, like I've been saying. My heart is really heavy, and also I've got to call myself out. I've really got to call myself out, because I was out here bringing up the trafficking like it was something to say, or like a gotcha moment. I was treating that shit like a gotcha moment. I was treating fucking, the abuse of people as if it was some kind of one-up on them. It's not a one-up for me or anybody. If this shit is still going on, and the timing, watch the timing. Why is everything coming out now? There's a huge transition of power happening where bricks are taken over. And because bricks are taken over, what does the losing side do? The losing side gets increasingly zealous with the nationalism. That's what the losing side does every time. They get increasingly zealous with the nationalism. All the dirt about the people in power in the losing countries comes out like clockwork. It happens all the time. This is not happening to help the public. This is not happening because, you know, to help children or to help victims of abuse. It's not to help them or to help us. It's to help the next governments that are going to become the new superpowers. And they're just going to do the same shit, but worse. That's what always happens. They're just going to do the same shit, but worse. And in the meantime, whilst all this stuff is coming out about sex trafficking and all that type of stuff, it's going to be rebranded among respectable people as the trad wife movement, as the red pill movement. I can see everything unfolding right in front of me right the fuck now, and I can't do a fucking thing about it. This shit is a mess. This shit is a mess, boy. As for my family, I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't. I know some of them are involved in it. But it's just like, this is so much. It's literally taking on the whole world. It's taking on the whole world. It's taking our souls on, essentially. Can we really manage to have a thriving society without cruelty? Can we really manage it? That's the really big question. Can we do it without cruelty and selfishness? Can we really do it? I feel sick. I feel sick, man. What a fucking mess. What the fuck is going on? How did we get... I don't know how we got here. This is so much bigger than, you know, this whole TI thing. It really is the smaller people of the world who hold the biggest secrets. It's designed that way, but yeah, it really is the people that are looked down on the most that hold the most secrets about absolutely everything. You really see what's fucked up about the world when you're a TI. I think you see it even more when you're a perp. And then I have to get into the insurance stuff. You got to remember, if we're test subjects, as TIs and even perps, we're insured. All of us are insured. The weapons used against us are insured. You know, the tools, like, you know, everything that we're being gangstalked with, it has to be paid for. Has to be paid for. I did some research on, you know, my passport. Apparently, I have life insurance on me that I don't know about. I have a trust. Apparently, everyone with a passport number has a trust in their name. I did research on this years ago. And every time there's a change, some money has to be taken out of the trust early. So, you know, I actually did investigate that at one point. I have to find the posts on Facebook, but they said that, oh, there's no money in your name. There's no money in this. Yeah, I just found it a bit odd. But yeah, I think every TI is insured and has a trust in their name. And if that, and you know, and when we die, I think that trust is cashed out. But the thing that I can't put together is, if there's a trust in our name, then why wouldn't they want us dead quickly? That's the thing that I can't really put together, because surely there would be more to gain from killing us, right? But then I have to remember there's the dark web. There are spectators on the dark web that, you know, that brings in money. You know, you're not just being tortured by the private companies, you're also being tortured by spectators. That brings in money. Like, it, this is why TIs are actually worth more alive. We're worth more alive for the entertainment value of torturing us. We're worth more alive, way more. So it's we're worth way more alive than dead. That's why. As long as we're alive, there are always new technologies that can be used on us. There are always new ways that our torture can be used as entertainment. There are always new ways in which, you know, we can be trafficked, or, you know, new pipelines to go down. There's always new ways to do that shit. And whilst all that's being done to us, again, because we're pegged as crazy or mentally ill or what have you, it affects our admissibility in court. So we can't talk to anybody. And if we do talk to anybody, law enforcement are going to use the medication line, because, again, law enforcement are involved as well. You have to remember that the government get paid a lot off the back of crime. It actually benefits them to allow criminals to reach a certain level of success before they shut them down, especially when they're white. Or especially when they're not black. They benefit from allowing criminals to become millionaires and sometimes even billionaires before seizing their shit and shutting them down. That's money in their pocket right there. Don't think for 1 second they don't use it, and they don't use the fucking that they don't use the fucking contraband items that they've seized. Don't think for 1 second that they don't use that to pay people off. The amount of money that can be generated from crime. Apparently it was, you know, drug trafficking that almost single-handedly saved the economy, the US economy, in 2008 during Barack's term, Barack Obama's term. When it comes to the endless possibilities of what the body can be used for in terms of sinister fucking deeds, we cannot underestimate how much more TIs are worth alive. So that's why they haven't killed us. That's why we haven't been killed, because there's more to gain from it. And yeah, isolating us means that, you know, we essentially become a sim for the people torturing us. And when you get into the meat and potatoes of it, it's incredibly grim. And then you have to get into the VR technology. Apparently they're using virtual reality technology on us. It's like virtual reality plus brain mapping plus big data. Now, a lot of TIs have been remarking that they've had induced dreams through technology, and I always used to resist saying that shit because I didn't know how it might be possible. And even now, I know about virtual reality plus, well, I'll call it there, virtual reality plus brain mapping plus big data. Even though I know about all of that, because I don't know the ins and outs of that technology, I can't say for sure that causes induced dreams in TIs. But again, I would not be surprised. Look at the Mark Later video by BJ Investigates. If that's what they've been if they've actually been trying to engage rehab through virtual reality, it means that they've likely been inducing dreams as well. So that's something worth investigating. And the thing that I'm trying to put together is, how can they induce dreams from a pretty big distance? How are they able to plant images in people's head remotely? That's the thing I'm not putting together. I can understand how they, how they change your mood by, by tuning in with your brain frequency and then changing something. I get how they're able to do that, but what I'm not able to put together is how they're able to map out the imagery of the brain in your head. What I'm not able to put together is how they're able to match the imagery in your head, how they're able to recreate that and then send you back images. Like, frequency is one thing and images are another. That's what I'm not able to put together. But yeah, they've been using virtual reality to apparently assist people in rehab. How the fuck did Amanda die, by the way? I still don't know that one. How the fuck did she die? In rehab. And now I'm looking at this situation and it's all the pieces are coming together. And I'm watching my community stick their fucking heads in the sand and pretend this shit isn't happening, even though we've been suffering the most brutality out of everyone, arguably. I'm watching my community stick their heads in the sand. I'm watching rich white folk be completely in on the TI thing, but use it to aggrandize themselves as usual. Like, I'm just watching all kinds of different shit happening from all different angles, and I just feel powerless to stop it. Because every single person who chooses a dividing line, who takes the truth and turns it into something divisive to click themselves off with, every time people do that, it exacerbates the problem of psychiatric trafficking and sex trafficking. And I'm watching everybody do this, and I'm just like, and then when somebody tries to bring up the trafficking, they're laughing at us, trying to shut us down. The shit is sick. The amount of problems that are going on in the world, and I actively know people that are contributing to it. Met them, spoke to them, and they don't fucking care. Because they're all right, Jack. They don't give a fuck. How can you forgive something like that? How can you forgive that? And yeah, I'm bothered about how this shit has basically stolen my life. I'm highly bothered. But it's not just about me, but fuck me. When you really unpack, when you really unpack everything, it's a fucking mess. It's an absolute fucking mess. But yeah, to recap, gangstalking is psychiatric trafficking. It's human trafficking, and it provides it basically facilitates the sex trafficking pipeline as well. And not just of adults either. This whole thing is connected. And it's rich, very, very wealthy people at the top of it. And there's a difference between the way it works in America and the way it works over here, I feel. Over in America, you're more likely to find like connections to private companies than alchemical fraternities or alchemical societies. It's less traditional and it's more corporate in America, it seems like. Because America in itself is a corporation. So over in the US, it seems to be more corporate. It seems to be more business oriented. even though there are alchemical fraternities and sororities involved, right? But with Britain now, Britain is more classist than anything. So it's likely that if there is sex trafficking going on, it's more likely to be connected deeper into our society than it is in America. It's likely to be connected more deeply with royalty, with aristocracy, with fraternities and sororities over here that belong to secret societies, especially the top levels, the upper levels. So over here, it's more about tradition and class structures than it is in America. In America, it's about money. Even though they do have, like, you know, just like over here, they have mafia, they have blood oaths and shit like that. But over here, it's more to do with class and where you come from, and it's about who you know. When it comes to gang stalking over here and the type of trafficking that happens to victims, it's literally about who you know. It's literally about who the perps know, especially the perps that do the worst of the dirt, like rape, like murder. They're usually connected somewhere higher up in this country. Even though there's nothing to say that like lower level perps can't murder somebody, they've done it before. But it's like the perps that are in this country, they're more connected to class. And they're more connected to connections, if that makes sense. It's less corporate, even though corporate is involved, it's definitely involved. It's more about who you know over here as a perp. You know, it's more about who you know over here. So I feel like that's one of the reasons why, even though the TI community is tighter over here, I also feel like that's why it's harder to actually hold gang stalkers accountable. Because there's a stronger hierarchy over here of class, from what I can see. You know, of class and connections. Oh, I really gotta go to bed, man. But yeah, I needed to talk about this because it's highly disturbing. And it's like when you're reminded of how disturbing it is, and you're reminded how many people are getting hurt, it just makes me feel guilty that I ever tried to use their hurt and their pain as an altar to my, lay their hurt and their pain as sacrifices to the altar of my own ego and my own vengeance. I feel incredibly bad about that. And whilst we're talking, I think I could have easily, if I'd have, in another life, I could have easily I think given how much bite I actually have, I feel like if I wasn't so brutalized and I wasn't treated so badly, I might have become a perp. Because I would have believed the lies. I'm so glad I'm not. Like, oh my God. Because who needs that shit? Who would want a life like that? But I will say this, right? It really shows how valuable one human being can be. Even a human being that's supposed to be on the bottom rung of the ladder. It really, really shows it. Don't ever take your worth for granted. Everything that you do, everything that you feel, it has value to it. It's literally worth trillions. Might be priceless, realistically, in the grand scheme of things. Priceless, not worthless, priceless. But everything that you think, everything that you feel, everything that you do creates trillions of pounds of industry. Take the shit seriously. Take it seriously. Stop fucking around. Ask questions. When you hear the truth, don't try to silence it. Find out what's really going the fuck on. Leave behind any of your preconceptions about religion, about any like that. Just leave it behind. Ask questions and find out what's really going on. And now I got to fucking go. I really got to get some sleep. I'm going to fucking watch something stupid before I go to sleep because I need a palate cleanser after that shit. But I will link Mark later the BJ Investigates video. And I will also link the VR brain mapping and big data thing. Although I haven't actually read it, I'm going to read it myself. So, yeah, fuck, I gotta go. I gotta go. Peace and blessings to you all. If you've made it this far, my fellow TIs, let me know how you guys are doing. It's a fucking cesspit out here. 2024, the year of truth, my ass. It's the year of the fucking setup. It's the year of the big deep breath before the fucking plunge. We're going to have 1 year of truth and awakenings, and then it's straight fucking down for the next decade. And now I gotta go, man. Fuck.